Juvenile violence continues to surge after a teen is shot in a Parkville neighborhood.
It was like...
Neighbors sound off as their street turns into a crime scene. These public safety agencies in Baltimore City are asking for more funding. Questions about the effectiveness of one office and a lack of resources for another. A local NAACP group calls out Maryland education, claiming they're failing African American students. They're warning to school leaders if things don't improve. Parents are furious after the state's troubled college savings program keeps the same controversial leaders.
Why are they not learning from past mistakes?
We make their voices heard as they fight for answers on the ongoing college fund freeze.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 10.
Two high-profile hearings tonight at City Hall as the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement and the City State's Attorney's Office present their budgets to the City Council.
Both organizations vowing to curb Baltimore's crime, but how will your tax dollars play a role? Good evening, I'm Kai Jackson.
And I'm Mary Bubala. Those hearings continuing right now at this hour at City Hall. Tonight we have team coverage as Fox 45's Keith Daniels looks into the request from Ivan Bates, trying to address a significant staffing shortage in his office.
Let's begin with Mackenzie Frost, who's been investigating Monzi's operations for years amid major transparency issues. So Mackenzie, that hearing started about an hour ago. What have you heard so far?
That's right, Kai. Well, we know that Monzi Director, the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement Director, Shante Jackson, was quick and prepared to defend the work of this agency. She started this budget presentation talking about all of the statistics, running down some of the homicides and non-fatal shooting statistics that she says the city is down compared to this time last year. Also noting that Safe Streets has completed more than 700 mediations year to date. But just like we've been reporting, it's still unclear exactly what constitutes a mediation. But so far, this budget hearing really focusing on the longevity of this agency. Many council members questioning how the city will continue to fund not just the staff members that Monzi is bringing on board, but many of these programs that right now are being funded through the federal COVID American Rescue Plan. That's the one-time dollars. And the questions now are, how will the city continue to foot the bill?
Are we planning for the future to be able to properly project out, to continue to like the director said, you know, constantly pushing this idea of, you know, let's invest the money, not spend the money, but ensuring that we can continue to see the residual effects on these investments in the future.
Everywhere that we've been making investments with those ARPA dollars, and to figure out where we're really seeing positive impact in our community so that we can be really strategic where we need to continue those investments, because the reality is we won't be able to continue everything.
What is going to be the apex of the total number of employees at Monzi?
I would offer that given the expanded and deepened scope of the agency when compared to its predecessor agency, the work required, the level of growth that we are seeing now, the team and I have delivered to the mayor what we believe the funding diversification spread and the staffing model would need to look like year over year through fiscal year 26, which takes us through the completion of the first version of the Comprehensive Violence Prevention Plan, and happy to defer to the Chief Administrative Officer with regard to what the apex will look like.
Another interesting thing is the director was really quick to notice and to mention the fact that she does plan on leaving this position by the end of this month. Now, we did learn that there are plans to announce a replacement within 60 days, although it's unclear who that will be. We're also learning that there will be likely an interim director of Monzi. Again, questions perhaps we'll get some answers to tonight. But again, that hearing is still going on. We'll have another update for you in our next hour. But for now, we're live inside City Hall. Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Mackenzie, thank you. And Mackenzie is heading right back into the hearing room. This is going to be a late night at City Hall, and she'll be live at 11 o'clock during the late edition.
Well, Monzi also oversees the Safe Streets program, and Fox 45 News has been working to find out more about the program's finances and the ex-convicts hired to keep the peace. Earlier this year, after Fox 45 News threatened to sue, the city finally handed over contracts with the nonprofits operating the Safe Streets sites. The contracts revealed the nonprofits are required to pay for a criminal background check for all employees, contractors, and volunteers. The Safe Streets worker charged in a murder case was found not guilty back in March. He had a prior criminal record, including second-degree murder, assault, drug, and gun convictions when Safe Streets hired him back in 2019. And that is not the only questionable case. Prosecutors say in 2020, Safe Streets worker Ronald Alexander told officers he was working for Safe Streets during a traffic stop and let go. During a federal search at his home a few days later, police found guns and drugs. In his plea agreement, Alexander confessed to taking drugs from people in the community as part of his work for Safe Streets.
A concerned family came to Fox 45 News in May saying their son was killed by a former Safe Streets employee with an extensive criminal record. Damon Scroggins' family criticized the Safe Streets program.
Has your view of the Safe Streets program changed throughout this?
Absolutely. Oh, yes. Yes. My belief is that our city government is financing a criminal enterprise. I believe that within my heart. Our city government is so invested in it that it's turning a blind eye to what it really is.
Well, our extensive reporting on Safe Streets is available right now on our website, foxbaltimore.com. Well, Monzi is also in charge of Baltimore's group violence reduction strategy, which launched a pilot program to mediate disputes before a crime occurs in West Baltimore last year. In Southwest, over 5 months, 26 people have been offered services. 11 people have gotten life coaching at a minimum. So far, no one is listed as having received education or employment services in the expansion, which is a contrast from the pilot district. And that brings us to our question of the day. Do you believe the city is budgeting taxpayer dollars wisely in the crime fight? So far, 97% of those who voted say no. You can head to foxbaltimore.com/vote to make your voice heard.
Well, City State's Attorney Ivan Bates also presenting his budget requests at City Hall tonight, looking to add several $100,000 in several employees. Fox 45's Keith Daniels joins us live with Bates' explanation to the council and questions he faced tonight. Keith?
Well, Mary, Ivan Bates spent about 2 hours, nearly 2 hours in front of the City Council's Ways and Means Committee, wrapping up just before 9 o'clock. And tonight, the top prosecutor making his case for a budget increase. At Baltimore City Hall, City State's Attorney Ivan Bates at his budget hearing, the city's new top prosecutor asking for more money to focus on two main areas in his office: upgrading technology and to hire more prosecutors.
My goal has been to have 50 new state's attorneys since the election. We've already reached out to now that we have 40 new assistant state's attorneys, 12 of which who left the office and have returned since the election.
Bates is asking Mayor Brandon Scott for an additional $800,000 in the budget, a budget that must be approved by the City Council. He also says about $300,000 of that funding request is needed to help offset the required resources to review police body camera footage. Evidence gathering, he says, that takes much time and can slow the progress of prosecutors working other cases.
For instance, homicide prosecutors, they may spend almost 70, 80, 100 hours on a murder case, 40 of which could be reviewing body camera footage.
Bates presenting his case, but council committee members also asking questions, namely about his new citation docket starting this month to address several offenses, including dirt bike charges.
What is your office going to do to ensure that it's enforced fairly and equally throughout the city?
So I am concerned about that, but I also recognize that we needed to do something for the people who are out there.
In the end, Bates telling us he's confident he'll get the funding he needs.
We feel very confident we should be able to get that money because at the end of the day, I think we've been able to lay out what we've been doing, that we're working hard, that we're growing, and that we have the citizens' best interest.
Well, Bates also calling for more funding to help train new prosecutors. He says he's also focused on diversity within the City State's Attorney's Office, bringing in diversity, including more Latino prosecutors. Well, live now at City Hall, Keith Daniels, Fox 45 News.
Keith, thank you. Our second question of the day, do you think City State's Attorney Ivan Bates should get the money he needs to run his office? Now, our poll just opened. Vote right now at foxbaltimore.com. And we also heard from the Baltimore City Sheriff's Office tonight. The first budget meeting for new Sheriff Sam Cogan. We'll have more on his request coming up at 10:30.
There were lockouts at 2 Baltimore County schools today, large police presences in the county. Those lockouts followed a standoff nearby. In Parkville, a juvenile was shot just before 3 o'clock this afternoon. He was taken to the hospital. Neighbors tell Fox 45 it's not the first time they're seeing juvenile violence on the streets. Fox 45's Jeff Abel is live tonight with their concerns about this violence. Jeff?
Well, residents in many communities are becoming accustomed to the sounds of gunfire, but they are not becoming accustomed to watching some of their youngest residents become victims. Detectives spent this afternoon combing this Parkville community for clues after gunfire erupted and brought neighbors to their feet.
Yeah, so it was like, right? You know, it's like about 5-6 shots.
Paul Morris lives across the street from the crime scene where officers found an injured teenager.
They arrived on the scene. They located a juvenile male suffering from a gunshot wound. That individual has been transported to an area hospital with what appears to be non-life-threatening injuries.
It's the latest in a string of shootings which have targeted juveniles.
I was sitting out back playing baseball with the kids, and I heard about 3 or 4 gunshots. And at first, the kids thought that they were firecrackers, but I knew what I heard.
This was the scene in Essex Friday night where police say 2 armed juveniles shot each other. Both were raced to the hospital with serious injuries.
I think the kids with guns, they shouldn't even have guns. The kids, they shouldn't even have access to these guns, and they do.
In Prince George's County, officers recently charged a 15-year-old with bringing a gun on a school bus and targeting a 14-year-old. County officials there say crime fighting is becoming increasingly difficult.
It's becoming more and more difficult to hold juveniles accountable.
Not surprised. Not surprised.
Back in Parkville, where another teen was gunned down in a nearby alley last year, this latest shooting comes as little surprise.
There's always arguments and all kinds of stuff going on around here. It's a shame. Pretty sad.
It is still unclear tonight what sparked this latest round of gunfire. So far, however, there are no suspects. We're live tonight. Jeff Abel, Fox 45 News.
And also just in from Baltimore County, Kennard Goins has been arrested and charged in the murder of his great-grandmother and grandfather after the 2 were found dead during a welfare check on a home along Cabot Road in Randallstown Sunday night. Goins is being held without bond.
Still ahead on Fox 45 News at 10 o'clock tonight. The state NAACP says public education for black children is, quote, intolerable. Tonight, Project Baltimore has their warning to school leaders if things don't improve. A teenager in Prince George's County is accused of getting onto a school bus and trying to kill another teen. The bus driver opens up about confronting the 15-year-old known as Baby K. Why he's being held a hero.
A pretty nice looking overnight with temperatures settling down into the 50s to around 60. More sunshine on the way for tomorrow, but I'll let you know when we could have some well-needed rain around here in the extended forecast coming up on my Weather Authority forecast.
And new tonight at 10:30, Maryland's 529 program under new oversight. But parents who can't get their money out of the plan says it's deja vu. The lack of change that they're frustrated with.
Tonight, the Maryland NAACP issuing a warning to public schools in our state. Improve education for African-American students, or the civil rights group will consider other actions.
As Project Baltimore's Chris Papps explains, the NAACP doesn't say what those other actions are, but their intent is clear.
The Maryland State chapter of the NAACP says public education for African American students in our state continues to be intolerable, saying the situation must be improved. On Monday, the Maryland NAACP released this public statement, saying it's attempted to work with state and local education agencies to remedy the dreadful education circumstances for African American children in public schools. But the situation has only gotten worse. The civil rights group is now calling on local and state school leaders to meet with them later this month at a conference where they can discuss strategies for improving outcomes for African American students. The group cites lagging academic achievement, students graduating without necessary proficiency, breakdown in school discipline, inappropriate treatment of special education students, and school-to-prison pipeline.
This is what the fight is for. It's about his future. It is about his future.
Many of the NAACP's concerns, which Project Baltimore has reported on extensively, are also cited in a lawsuit filed against Baltimore City schools that captured the attention of civil rights attorney Ben Crump.
I want to believe that the lawsuit is making everybody pay attention, making them understand that we all have to come to the table. Every stakeholder has to come to the table and try to solve this crisis, because we have to treat it like a crisis.
Crump recently spoke with FOX45 News about the lawsuit, which he joined as counsel in July 2022, shortly after it was filed by Baltimore residents Juvenile and Shawanda Patterson. The Pattersons claim the city is misusing their tax dollars because students in the public school system are not getting the education they deserve. While the crux of the complaint is tax dollars, Crump says it's about much more.
Without a quality education in American society today, you are a target for the school-to-prison pipeline. You're already in prison. They just have not closed the prison cell door yet.
In November 2022, a judge denied the city's motion to dismiss the lawsuit, allowing the case to move forward. Crump says it could be key to solving the education crisis, not just in Baltimore, but nationwide.
Our children's education is a crisis issue. We can't let this fall beneath the cracks and say that we'll get to it tomorrow, because every day that we don't treat it like a crisis, we lose dozens and dozens of other children.
The Maryland NAACP, however, doesn't appear convinced that education leaders will act with the urgency needed. The group calls the upcoming conference a good faith effort to work together to find solutions, but warns if there is no substantial progress to improve the critical status of African American students, other actions may be necessary and will have to be pursued.
We owe our children at least the basic quality education so they can have an opportunity at the American promise of life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness. But without a quality education, their future is so bleak from day one.
The Maryland NAACP conference is set for June 15th and 16th at the Maritime Institute in Linthicum Heights, Maryland. FOX45 News will be there. I'm Chris Papst, and this is Project Baltimore.
Well, tonight we're hearing from a Prince George's County school bus driver at the wheel when a teen boarded her bus and attempted to shoot a girl. Police arrested a 15-year-old known as Baby K last week. Surveillance images show a gun in his hand. Police say he tried to shoot one of the kids on the bus, but the gun malfunctioned. The driver says she froze when Baby K pulled out his weapon.
The furthest thing that came to my mind was somebody jumping on the bus attempting to kill someone. It never even came into my thoughts. So I was literally frozen. I couldn't move.
Baby K's 2 accomplices were also arrested. Police believe Baby K murdered the sister of one of his accomplices in D.C. 2 days after this attack.
Well, maybe you heard it. The boom felt across the DMV this weekend. NORAD says it occurred when 2 fighter jets went supersonic. They were chasing a small plane that moved into restricted airspace over D.C. And tonight we're learning more about the unresponsive pilot. The plane crashed in the mountains of Virginia. All 4 people on board were killed. A Department of Defense source told CNN the pilot was seen slumped over the seat while flying over D.C. Emergency crews are now sifting through the wreckage in an effort to recover any flight logs.
It'll be basically sifting through what is available and looking at each component that might have some sort of piece of information that we can either further tear down in a laboratory and go from there on each piece that might reveal different systems that we'll look at in any investigation.
And here's a look right now at the flight path. We know the plane was scheduled to travel from Tennessee to New York, but the Cessna veered off course and entered restricted airspace in D.C. and then crashed in Western Virginia. Investigators are working to find out when exactly that pilot became unresponsive.
And after sunshine over the weekend, sunshine today, and a dry and cool start tomorrow, well, some good weather going to be coming our way, but it's kind of a double-edged sword. Unfortunately, it also comes with this, a moderate drought across the area, and that continues to build. Unfortunately, this year so far, we've had just over 10 inches of rain. Sounds like a lot, right? But average to date is nearly 18 inches, so we're running 7.88 inches below average. I'm going to let you know when we could finally get some well-needed rain around here on my Weather Authority forecast.
Well, taking a look now at the Fox Box top left, House Oversight Chair James Comer says he will move forward with efforts to hold the director of the FBI in contempt. It's over demands to turn over documents related to unverified claims that as Vice President Joe Biden was involved in a $5 million bribery scheme. The White House calls this a political stunt.
Top right, a cryptic video released by Ukraine shows soldiers hushing the viewer, saying plans love silence. There will be no announcement of the start. It signals Ukraine is closer to its counteroffensive along the eastern region. Just today, Russian TV and radio broadcasts were hacked.
Bottom left, Allstate Insurance is the latest company to no longer offer coverage on properties in California, citing the increase in wildfires and rebuilding costs. State Farm Insurance has pulled out, too.
Bottom right, a new lung cancer pill cuts the risk of death in half when taken daily, according to new data from a clinical trial of Tagrisso. The study of the AstraZeneca drug was recently released. Lung cancer is the deadliest cancer, with roughly 1.8 million deaths each year worldwide. Be sure to sign up for News on the Go. Go to foxbaltimore.com and click on Mobile Alerts Sign Up under the Station tab. You can also download the Fox 45 app for your smartphone. Search for WBFF in your app store. Coming up at 10:30, new oversight of Maryland's 529 plan. But that's not translating into new leadership. The frustration from parents when they learned who's leading it.
A rise in Baltimore crime committed by people with outstanding warrants. Some new data shows just how often it happens. Well, at this hour, the Baltimore City Council continues to hear from Monzi presenting its budget proposal for the upcoming fiscal year. Our Mackenzie Frost has been listening in for the past 90 minutes.
Mackenzie, we just got an update on the upcoming leadership changes at Monzi. What can you tell us?
Yeah, that's right, Mary Kai. The outgoing director, Shante Jackson, made it a point to talk about the fact that she is planning to leave this position at the end of this month, early on in her budgeting presentation. And she talked about how she believes the agency is set up and prepared to continue this work even after she's gone. We know that she is not talking about where she is going, but the council not stopping from asking about the plans and if there is somebody lined up to take her spot. Take a listen.
My first question is actually to a CAO, and thinking about how important the work that this office is doing, of course thinking about leadership for the office. Do we have a sense of the timeline for replacement and either a decision or some leanings toward an interim until we do fill the position?
Thank you for the question. I actually hope to have a replacement or a new director in place, hopefully within 60 days.
Within 60 days, and then we're also hoping potentially getting some news on an interim director that could fill that position in the meantime. Now, just before we stepped out to do this live show, one of the council members, chairman of this budgeting process, Eric Costello, asked about the salary of Shante Jackson. If you remember, we've been reporting that in 2022, Jackson got a promotion, bringing her salary to more than $223,000. Costello asked what the starting salary of the executive director of MONSE was at the beginning when this agency was just created not very many years ago. The starting salary, $195,000. The councilman pointing out the growth in not just the position, but also the staff and the salary amount as well. This hearing continuing. We're expecting even more questions. From what I understand, the questions continue about sustainability and the future of MONSE and these programs. We'll keep bringing you updates in a little bit. We're live inside City Hall. Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
We are following three other big stories tonight at 10:30. Crimes committed but no charges. How unserved warrants are becoming an issue in Baltimore and why criminals could be slipping through the cracks.
Increased responsibility for the Baltimore Sheriff's Office, how they're taking some of the burden off BPD.
Maryland 529 announces new leadership, a move some frustrated parents are calling a slap in the face.
I'm 56 days away from another tuition bill. Another one. This will be the third since they've frozen earnings payments, and there's no guidance at all.
Well, Maryland 529 is now under state treasury leadership, promising a fresh start as frozen accounts and disappearing funds leave families on the hook.
Instead, 529 will be under the same leader who oversaw the errors in the first place. Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor has an update and why parents say this is unacceptable.
It's Groundhog's Day.
Frustrated families investing in a prepaid Maryland 529 plan experiencing a devastating case of deja vu.
You've taken all of the bad decisions that were made prior to taking over, and you're just continuing them.
Starting this month, the state's troubled college savings program now in the hands of the state treasurer's office.
Partnering with him and other members of the board.
Lawmakers voting to shift control of the agency after hundreds of parents reported thousands of dollars missing from their accounts. But instead of appointing new leadership to seek new solutions, Treasurer Derek Davis choosing Anthony Savia to run the program, the agency's former executive director who's failed to meet several deadlines set for resolution.
We've been trying to get an interview with you for months now.
And refused to answer questions concerning the financial harm done to families.
Why won't you answer our questions? You're just ignoring us. You don't think that these families have a right to know what's going on with their money?
Patty is in there and she's got a statement for you.
So you're not taking questions again?
Correct.
And why aren't you taking questions?
Patty over there has a statement for you.
Davis's appointment enraging account holders. In a Facebook group dedicated to affected families, one person writing, Savia is a slap in our faces and an unfortunate indication of your intentions with the 529 program. Another writing, this is a person that caused significant mistrust to the families. So for the life of me, I don't understand why you would hire him to handle our accounts. And I simply cannot believe you would appoint Anthony Savia, the man at the very center of all the controversy.
Why are they not learning from past mistakes?
The group's creator and moderator, Brian Savoy, says with tens of thousands of dollars slashed from his savings, his interest earnings still frozen, and another tuition bill looming.
I need this money in order to pay for the fall semester tuition, or else I'm going to be going into debt. And I'm going to see that the state is responsible for that debt.
Treasurer Davis declined an interview with Fox 45 Monday and said his office sent a statement writing in part, quote, while Anthony Savia is the deputy treasurer, accountability begins and ends with the treasurer. The treasurer has said he hopes to have this matter resolved before the fall semester.
You run out of time.
For struggling account holders, they're now turning to the state representatives who called for the change in leadership to make sure that accountability is carried out accordingly.
You need to step up. You need to take on your responsibility. You know, Governor Moore, members of the legislature, you gave Treasurer Davis a job. Make sure he does it, and make sure he does it quickly.
Rebecca Breyer, Fox 45 News.
Early this year, 2 other 529 executives resigned. Jessica McCain stepped down in February. She was a member of the board's Audit and Governance Subcommittee. Less than a month earlier, board chair Peter Sirigatis resigned.
Well, a violent first weekend of June in Baltimore. At least 5 shot, including a 19-year-old killed along Orchard Street in Seton Hill and a 27-year-old killed along Eastern Avenue in East Baltimore.
Police identify that 27-year-old as Jeremy Maldonado. 36-year-old Jose Flamenco Reyes has been arrested and charged with his murder. A second person was also shot and taken to the hospital, but they have since been released.
More than 13,000 crimes have been reported in Baltimore so far this year, but an investigation reveals those reports are rarely leading to arrests. Fox 45's Alexa Ashwell looks into the issue of unserved warrants.
We received 2022 warrant data from the Baltimore Police Department. It shows last year the department served more than 2,200 warrants. 62 warrants went unserved, the majority of those for felony crimes. The sentencing of a Mervo High School teen in the shooting death of a Baltimore police lieutenant's husband, James Blue III, a reminder of a suspect who seemingly fell through the cracks and continued to commit crime. Unserved warrants, law enforcement experts say, a nationwide problem that also exists here in Baltimore.
Our research shows that fugitives on the run commit more crime.
Don Snyder, the commander of the Capital Area Regional Task Force, speaking to the issue when just days ago, federal, state, and local law enforcement announced the arrest of 95 fugitives, individuals who were wanted for crimes, many of them violent, and still walking the streets.
By the time they hit the Marshal Service Task Force's radar, they have committed multiple crimes. We caught fugitives that were on the run for a little while, and then some that were recently wanted.
Law enforcement expert Jason Johnson says the issue of unserved warrants comes down to staffing and budgeting.
The Warrant Apprehension Task Force, which is the component of the police department that is out actually looking for people who are fugitives, they don't have the resources or the manpower to go track down every single person with an open warrant. So therefore, you're going to have a lot of people with open warrants that are just going about their business, probably committing other crimes, waiting to be arrested. And it really gets down to the resources that law enforcement has in Baltimore.
In the past, the Baltimore Police Department has said the agency prioritizes warrants based on the severity of the crime. But even some repeat violent offenders falling through the cracks. Back in May, when Baltimore police arrested Terrell Parker on drug distribution charges, court records show the 26-year-old already had 3 open warrants for his arrest, including for attempted murder. One warrant was nearly 6 months old. Baltimore City Sheriff Sam Cogan agrees it's a resource issue.
And so we have to look at the resources that are being put into warrants.
Since taking office, Cogan says he's more than doubled his warrant apprehension task force, but what kind of warrants the agency serves has not changed. Cogan believes it should.
We all need to come together and find a way that we can look at the warrants that are priority warrants, where we have these repeat violent offenders, and all of us do a better job working together to try to get them off the street.
Again, this is 2022 warrant data. We did request 2023 numbers. A spokesperson with BPD says they should have that information to us by the end of the week. Alexa Ashwell, Fox 45 News.
The Baltimore Sheriff's Office appears in front of City Council tonight at the budget hearings. Sheriff Sam Cogan is in his first year on the job, and he's asking for funding increases to carry out additional responsibilities. The office will provide more resources to those facing evictions and also take